What's up guys, Jack here and welcome back to a brand new video, and today we're doing a Q&A. This is like the 5th or 6th, I'm losing count, that's how many Q&As we're doing. I love doing these Q&As. I think I've said on the channel before, like as soon as I get a lot of subs, as soon as I get enough subs, I'm gonna do Q&As weekly. And because of you guys, I was finally able to do what I wanted to do. So thank you guys, every single one of you, for asking questions. Sometimes I can't get to all of them, but usually I leave them for the next week. So please comment in the comment section below for next week. Also guys, thank you for the support this week on the whole Francis Ngannou videos. I feel like the channel has become a Francis Ngannou channel, but the truth is there's been so much news about him. But I assume there's gonna be a lot of questions about the fights this week, predictions, the Francis Ngannou situation. So let's get into the questions. Do you wish UFC would drop Venom and go back to custom clothing for fights? If you guys would have seen my video yesterday, you guys would have seen, yes, I'm super in favor of getting back those custom clothes. Obviously it's a little unrealistic because of the whole deal, but I think at the very least, and I saw some people in the comment section below saying this, there should at least be one sponsor, right? At least a person should have at least one sponsor. Sponsorships could pay for fight camps. Like sponsorships is a huge deal, and it was a huge thing to take away from the fighter. So yeah, if it were up to me, definitely get rid of it, because I wouldn't have so much of a problem with the fighter pay if we can get back those sponsors. All right, next question comes from Arnavi Pandy. Could Francis get into boxing and fight the top heavyweights like Fury or Wilder? He has the power and talent. The way he could make more money than he would ever made in the UFC. I don't think McGregor is ever getting paid as much by the UFC as he made fighting Mayweather. So the latter part of your question is 100% true. Conor got paid something like $100 million for that fight with Floyd. I don't know how much went to the UFC, but Conor probably gets around like $10 million per fight, something like that. So to answer your question, could Francis Ngannou go into boxing? 100% he could go into boxing, like literally. Could he succeed? I don't think so. You know, we've seen time and time again where MMA fighters going into boxing. We've seen guys like Tyron Woodley, who was a UFC champion and yes, was past his prime when he fought Jake, but Jake is nowhere near a caliber of a Tyson Fury or a Deontay Wilder type. So no, I think he would probably lose, but of course the one thing that Francis does have going for him is his power, you know? He has one punch knockout power, freakish power, so of course I could always play in his favor, but I still think that he would probably lose in those matches. Sam Waters asks, do you think DC will commentate the Jones fight in March? Now, I saw DC say on his YouTube channel that he was going to commentate the Jon Jones fight. He did say. However, do I think that this will happen? I could see a scenario where the UFC takes him off. I think the UFC took him off. I think it was the last Makhachev fight night with Bobby Green. I think that the UFC took him off. I could see something like that going on because, you know, especially not necessarily even the commentating, but the fighter meetings. I can only imagine how awkward that would be. And the rivalry that those two had were so intense. Topic, do I think so? DC said so, but if I were to take a bet, I would say no. Pitar asks, why is Jon Jones in the red corner versus Gane despite not being ranked while Gane is #1? The funny thing is, you mentioned this is such a little detail, but I 100% agree. I was so confused too, actually. That was my first thought. Why is Jones #1? To answer your question, the reason is probably because Jones is still on the pound for pound list. And to play devil's advocate, I guess you could say, why is Islam Makhachev before Alexander Volkanovski in their fight? However, I do think that's a little bit different. We're talking about a champion in that weight class, but I do get it. You know, I do get what you're saying, but honestly, who cares? I made a big deal about it too, and I was thinking, but at the end of the day, who cares? We're getting the fight. Notex asks, who do you see winning the rematch of Izzy versus Pereira? Now, obviously, look, I think I've mentioned this a little bit in the past. Obviously, I think Adesanya has to use a little bit more grappling this time around, you know? Pereira is such a big guy, and if I'm going to be honest, I think the odds are in Pereira's favor. I think Israel Adesanya isn't that good of a wrestler. Well, not think, I think we all know at this point that he isn't that good of a wrestler. I think Alex Pereira could possibly train wrestling and be good enough to defend those takedowns, because we're not dealing with a high-level wrestler here. He could probably learn to stuff Israel Adesanya's takedowns in the time that it takes for the rematch. So if I'm going to be honest, I think the rematch favors Alex Pereira. I mean, he's beat him 3 times. He has the power advantage. He has the size advantage. All the advantages really go to Pereira. And of course, Izzy could still win, but I would probably have to say Alex Pereira. Do you think Izzy's loss affected his legacy? Perfectly back-to-back questions right there. Well, one of the things is, I think it will affect his legacy. He's lost to him 3 times, and especially if Izzy loses to him a 4th time, that's very bad. One of the things that I think really affected his legacy, sadly, was that Jan Blachowicz fight. I mean, think about how crazy it would have been thinking, like, up until that point of Alex Pereira, Izzy would have been undefeated. Like, that is insane to me. And it's so funny when we see that 1 next to a person's name, everything goes out the window. That level of invincibility goes out the window despite how good they are. But do I think it'll affect his legacy? You know, it really depends on how the next fight goes. If Izzy starches Alex Pereira, says, hey, I made my adjustments, I think it'll do fine against his legacy. When Conor McGregor lost to Nate Diaz the first time, he came back, made adjustments, beat Eddie Alvarez, and his legacy was still intact. It really just depends on how the next fight goes, but if he loses, yeah, his legacy is definitely not where it should be. And when you look at his title defenses, you know, I hate to be this guy. He beat Robert Whittaker. Obviously, Robert Whittaker, very talented. He beat Paulo Costa. Arguably, people say Whittaker and Romero should have beat Adesanya. I don't think he had those names. Like, Kamaru Usman had those emphatic finishes, had those great fights with Colby Covington. He had a really good legacy. Adesanya had a lot of bumps in his legacy. He had a lot of boring fights. So I think, yeah, his legacy and losing to Alex Pereira is definitely in jeopardy. Look, at the end of the day, we never really saw Izzy fight a good wrestler either. There's a lot of questions, and I wonder if we're going to look back on Adesanya's past and be like, hey, he never really fought a wrestler, you know? He really only fought a couple guys. edge decisions against Whitaker and Romero, and lost to Pereira. I wonder if that's going to be his legacy at the end of this. What fight are you most looking forward to? Easy. I'm going with Jon Jones versus Ciryl Gane. I'm also looking forward to Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski, but I think that Islam is going to destroy Volkanovski, unfortunately. So I'll probably say Ciryl Gane, Jon Jones, or that Leon Edwards or Kamaru Usman fight. That's also a fight that's interesting. Justin Gaethje, Rafael Fiziev. There's a lot of good fights coming up. Crispy Wings asks, how do you think being a heavyweight and being inactive for years will affect Jones' stamina against his fight with Ciryl Gane? Look, I think Ciryl Gane's best attribute is something that Nasruddin Imavov doesn't have. They're very similar, but Gane is a lot more talented because he has the cardio and he also doesn't get hit so often. And the thing is, like, I think with a lot of these kickboxers, you see with Alex Pereira and you see it with Ciryl Gane. I think the bread and butter here, I think the way that Jon is going to win is the boxing. I think Jon is going to have to kick the leg, slow down the movement of Gane, and get him in the boxing range and also mixing the wrestling. Now, Ciryl Gane's best asset, in my opinion, is that cardio. He moves like a middleweight, but yet has cardio for 5 rounds. There is a very serious scenario where he moves in and out with Jon Jones, outpoints him for 5 rounds. Ciryl Gane is just that good. And obviously, he's fighting with bigger guys. There's a lot of X factors when it comes to Jon Jones' return. There's a lot of mysteries, which is why I think he's an underdog. Though I think that Jon will probably win, there is a lot of question marks because, look, it's a lot different wrestling a guy like Ciryl Gane. It's definitely a lot more weight and a lot more weight that you're carrying on. So definitely a lot of X's. Jon has put on the weight naturally. Of course, maybe, you know, you never know with the secret juice, but either way, he's put it on progressively. You know, this isn't just a sudden move. I think he conditioned himself to take on heavier guys. So I have faith that he'll do fine. All right, Louis Ashwood asks, who do you think is the greatest fighter on the mic of all time and current? For me, it's Chael, the greatest of all time, and Izzy is the best of the current lot. Best of all time, I think you gotta go Conor McGregor. I mean, just for that legendary, who the fuck is that guy moment. Chael was also good, but who's the best currently? I mean, maybe Michael Chandler. I mean, Michael Chandler's call out of Conor McGregor was really good. He doesn't really have that trash talk, though, about him. Conor McGregor! I mean, Renato Moicano had a really good moment on the mic last year. So yeah, I'd probably go with one of them. Moreno or Figueiredo. A question I thought was going to come up that I'm dreading answering. Oh man, that fight is so competitive. I have no clue, if I'm being honest. Like, sorry guys, I have zero clue. This fight is 50-50. I believe if they fight on Friday and Saturday, it's probably different results because the fight is just going to be so close. These two are truly the #1 and #2 flyweight. We honestly have no clue who's #1 and who's #2. They're 1-1-1. I don't think who wins on Saturday is going to determine who's the best. I think it's going to be another close decision. I think we're probably gonna, I don't know, I mean, Figueiredo has the power advantage, and I think Moreno's boxing is a little bit better. I think Figueiredo's gonna win, which hurts me because I love Brandon Moreno, and I loved Brandon Moreno before anyone loved Brandon Moreno, so don't say I'm just jumping on some hype train. Yeah, I think I'll go Deiveson Figueiredo. I think Brandon Moreno, with his stuff with his coach, with James Krause, not training with him. Of course, Figueiredo is also not training with Cejudo. I think Figueiredo said he only had to cut something like 8 pounds or something like that, and that was on Monday, so in my opinion, I think Figueiredo gets the win. I think he wins another decision. Did you watch the mixed rules fight between DJ and Rodtang in ONE FC? Would you like to see mixed rule bouts between other fighters like Super Bon or Max Holloway, or Nong versus Corey Sandhagen? I did see it. To me, it's not really my thing. I don't really like the whole mixed thing, but I could see why people would like it. Funny thing you mentioned about Super Bon, I just saw him fight last week, and someone in my live chat said to watch it. Watch the full card because they said it. I wish I remembered who it was so I could tell them, and was a big fan of ONE FC. I see what you guys are hyping up about. Every time I say PFL is the second best organization, I get tons of comments. ONE FC, what are you talking about? Saying that I'm dumb. I could definitely see the hype now. I think ONE FC is definitely up there. I still stick with PFL being #2, but that's just me. So yeah, Max Holloway, Super Bon. I mean, yeah, like those fights would be interesting to see. I wouldn't mind seeing like Super Bon versus Dustin Poirier. If the top 10 of each weight class had striking only champions and a wrestling only champion, who do you think they would be? For example, Poirier for Z for lightweight striking, Islam lightweight wrestling champ. It would be interesting. Like I said, you know, obviously Islam is definitely the best wrestler at lightweight. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of cases to be there, especially middleweight. Middleweight's a great example of best striker. Probably Pereira would probably be the champion, right? And best grappler, I mean, who would that be? I mean, maybe, oh, Bo Nichols at middleweight. He'd probably be up there with wrestling. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting idea. All right, Liam C asks, will the PFL give Jake an actual fight at any point in time? I think the PFL is happy to give Jake a fight. I think the PFL would say, hey, can you go into this tournament and get crushed by one of their dudes to promote them? I think the PFL would love that. Now, does Jake take the fight is the question. I mean, Jake seems to be serious. I mean, I believe Jake would do it. Jake has done a lot of risky boxing matches like Anderson Silva. So yeah, I'll say that I think Jake at one point will fight MMA. Probably be against some scrub. I don't think it'll be anybody top level, of course. Final question. Why are you such a Colby hater? Give the King of Miami the respect he deserves. So this would be funny, but I never hated on Colby ever on the channel. I really wish if you could comment what I hated on him for. I never hated on him at all. As a matter of fact, there's a video of me literally defending him in the Masvidal situation. I like Colby. You know, there was a time where I didn't like Colby, but you gotta understand, Colby's just playing a character. He's not serious. At the end of the day, he's trying to just entertain the fans, do his thing, get money. If you take him too serious, you're honestly just clowning yourself. But yeah, I think that's gonna conclude the questions this week. Thank you guys, every single one of you guys, for asking. I can't wait to do another Q&A next week. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like if you did, and I'll see you guys in the next one.